Pure Fiction has just reset again, and I wanted to share some tips that I've learned along the way that might help you guys hit that 12 stars and get all those juicy stellar jades. We're gonna get straight into it. To kick us right off, we have the two top dogs of Pure Fiction that everyone should build, Herda and Himeko. I can say for pretty much certain, if you don't have these two characters built, you're gonna struggle in Pure Fiction unless your account is absolutely stacked to the brim with 5 stars and even their eidolons. I would totally understand if prior to Pure Fiction, your Herda and Himeko were sitting at level 1. But now that Pure Fiction's been out for a while, you pretty much have no excuse to put some resources into them and let them carry you through the game mode. Herda is completely free, with everyone having her up to E6 as long as you complete Simulated Universe. And for a free character, she's arguably the best carry in Pure Fiction we have right now. She's only just about to get topped by the new limited 5-star Jade, who is pretty much tailor-made for the mode. Himeko is obviously not free, but as a standard 5-star, there is probably a lot of the player base that have her. I wouldn't say Himeko's as good as Herda at clearing Pure Fiction, but when there is Fire Week, she can do really well as a hyper carry, and then obviously we can always put them together and play a dual carry team. Now, in terms of the actual game mode in Pure Fiction, Hoyo seems to be playing into the Herda Himeko duo, as a lot of the time there's Fire and Ice Week on the same half, which is Hoyo basically telling you use Herda and Himeko. When they aren't together, it's normally there's at least Ice Week or Fire Week on one side, and then you can easily use one of them to clear that side by themselves. Unless the HP pools of Pure Fiction get a lot higher, which I don't think they will, because the whole point of the game mode is to just kill a lot of small mobs, her and Himeko will stay as two of the best characters in Pure Fiction, and if you don't have them built, and you are struggling to get that 12 stars, 100% spend some Trailblaze power into building them. The next tip I have is to actually do with your relics. Now, as we know, Pure Fiction is a mode full of really small mobs that are quite squishy, and you just have to kill your way through a lot of waves of them. And for that reason, a lot of our characters will actually do too much damage, where a lot of the damage is going to waste because they're overkilling the mobs. I would suggest that for a lot of our characters, you could try using an ER rope on them so they can spam their ultimates more often. There are some characters where this doesn't really matter too much, like Dan Heng, where his ult is more of a utility to give him those extra skill points. But for a lot of the characters, having an ER rope, being able to use more ults, is gonna easily help them be able to clear through more waves. For example, on someone like Kafka, you'll normally want to run attack rope in MOC or pretty much other game modes so she can do more dot damage. But in Pure Fiction, her dot damage without the attack rope is honestly already enough. And for that, we can then run an ER rope on her instead so she can spam her ult, which is her fully AoE ability, and let her clear through waves easier. Even for someone like Jinran, whose ult does do a decent amount of damage but is more often looked at as an ability to help stack his Lightning Lord, in Pure Fiction, Lightning Lord is overkill, and we can't really speed it up with anything we have in the game. His ult, on the other hand, can actually be spammed quite a lot if we give him an ER rope, and normally the damage of his ultimate is actually enough in Pure Fiction because the waves are pretty squishy. Now, I'm not saying you should look at your DPS character and just give them an ER rope and they're instantly going to perform better in Pure Fiction. But there's a good chance that if you have a character with a really strong ultimate that does AoE damage and feels like it's definitely overkilling in Pure Fiction, try giving them an ER rope and you never know what might happen. For our next tip, I'm going to suggest that you try and play with no sustain. Now, unlike MOC, Pure Fiction does not require all your characters to be alive for you to get all the stars. And also unlike MOC, Pure Fiction doesn't really have enemies that are too much of a threat most of the time. There's a good chance that you can run 3 supports with a carry and get away with it pretty easily. An easy example of this is if you're running Herda Hyper Carry, you could be using Sparkle, Tingyun, and Robin and just have Herda getting so many buffs that she just completely wipes through every wave. There's a good chance that you might need to reset because characters will die, but if they die near the end of a clear, you can probably just play it through because you're not going to get punished if one of your characters do end up dying. I would say playing no sustain is more of like a last resort. If you can play with a sustain, then you should absolutely go for it. But if you really can't get that clear and you're really far away, I would suggest trying to slap a 3rd support or Nihility on the team and just keep resetting your way through until you get a really good clear. Our next tip is to not underestimate certain characters in Pure Fiction. Now, everyone looks at Pure Fiction and they think, I want an erudition character or just an AoE character to help me clear through this. And most of the time they are right. erudition characters are the best ones. Herda, Himiko, Argenti, and the new Jade are probably the best pure fiction carries that we have in the game. But even then, we don't need to use the absolute best characters to be able to clear the content. Surprisingly, there are some times where hunt characters can actually perform well. In one of the more recent pure fictions, Topaz was actually a really high performing character because on each of the waves there was an elite enemy, and more often than not they were fire weak. We also had a follow-up focus buff that was helping Topaz do more damage. You combine that with another erudition character, so like Topaz Himiko, and you could actually do some pretty cool stuff with Himiko clearing all the smaller units on the side while Topaz slowly chips down the elite enemy in the middle. We also have Sealer. Sealer is a character that I think is highly underrated in pure fiction. If you look on YouTube, there are plenty of people doing absurd clears with Sealer in pure fiction, some that even outperform the Herda and Himiko. I've seen 40Ks by Sealer on pretty much every pure fiction since release, and I even saw on one of them that people were able to zero cycle with Sealer, who's a completely single target unit. Now we also have someone like Akron. Akron has pretty much proven herself in pure fiction, but when she first released, a lot of people, including myself, looked at her kit and thought, wow, she's just going to overkill everything and she's not going to get enough ultimates to be able to clear through a lot of waves. Well, now that we've actually played her, she is surprisingly good in pure fiction. There's a lot of ways for her to get her ult really quickly, and when you do make it to the boss at the end, Akron is a character that just does so much damage that she's already chipping down the boss in the middle while clearing all the waves on the side. You can always just abuse trend of the universal market with a character like firemc, and Akron is going to get a huge amount of stacks for her ult. Basically, while the erudition characters are the ones you should probably be focusing on if you're struggling in pure fiction, definitely don't underestimate some of the more unlikely units that might still help you hit that 30k. Before we get to our final tip, I'm going to throw in a little extra one, which is a little lame, but pull Jade or Argenti. Now, we all know one of the worst things that gacha companies do is they create a problem and then sell a solution. Hoyo definitely don't hide that they do this, especially with something like Dan Heng, where they gave him a skill point issue and then sold a solution in the form of Sparkle. Well, if you are genuinely struggling with pure fiction and you've tried everything you think you can do, then there is a solution on the banners, which is Jade or Argenti, two of the strongest characters we have for pure fiction. I can say without a doubt, especially Jade is going to easily be able to 40k aside of pure fiction as long as you give her a reasonable team and reasonable amounts of investment. And for our final tip, it comes pretty hand in hand with the last one we had, and that's to experiment like crazy. Once again, pure fiction is a mode where you don't really need the most damage output out of your teams, and a lot of the time some of the craziest combos might help you clear the game mode. For example, I remember in one of the earlier pure fictions, one of the teams that saved me from being able to get that 60k was using Sealer and Blade as a dual carry. I would have Blade just chipping down all the enemies, occasionally killing some of the smaller guys on the side, and then Sealer would be able to get her resurgence and slowly kill them off one by one. More recently, another team that helped me clear was putting Jingran and Blade on the same team. I remember being forced to put 3 Harmony units with Herda on the first half, so she would be able to get close to 40k, and then my second team just needed to get around 22,000. And since I had no harmonies left for Jingran, I decided to just slap Blade in because he could help do some AoE damage, and it also was a wind weak stage. Experimenting with all these kind of weird teams is how I've been able to clear pure fiction fully every single time, despite barely investing into my Himiko and Herda, and having a little bit too many hunt characters on my account. I know resetting pure fiction and MOC a lot can be really annoying, but sometimes you just need to keep throwing stuff at the wall until something sticks. Hope some of these tips help you guys clear through pure fiction and get all those stellar jades. Comment down below some extra tips for pure fiction that I might have missed that might help some other people in the community clear. Feel free to join my Discord server if you do want to come hang out, and be sure to subscribe if you found this video enjoyable or helpful. And that's pretty much it from me. I'll see you guys next time.